Hello, welcome to the Triple Tech podcast on the Distinct Sports Network. I'm Max. In the Knicks shirt is Orm, and in the Grizzlies shirt is Connor. Today it's going to be a fairly quick episode. We're going to look at the conference semi-finals, and then we're going to do a review of the first game that was on Sunday night. This won't be out before the Monday matches, so we're not going to sort of preview too much. We'll just sort of talk about the whole series in general, and then we'll get on to some off-season trades and free agent signings, mainly the big names that might happen. So there isn't really any sort of standout games anymore. Every game's big in the playoffs now. So we're going to start with the Boston versus Milwaukee game, because I think that was probably the most interesting how it went. So I'm going to start with you, on your first impressions from that series.
I was very, very pleasantly surprised by the Milwaukee Bucks. I mean, I say pleasantly surprised, but I shouldn't be. And that's my own fault for almost disrespecting them, in my opinion of them. I mean, we think back to Chris Middleton and Drew Holiday smiling in that post-game press conference and when they were down 2-0 in last year and then going on to win the series. And that's an iconic picture now. And I think the story of this game is, yes, Giannis played absolutely incredible, but I know you guys are definitely going to talk about that. I want to talk about and show a bit of love to Drew Holiday. Had an incredible game, 27-10. But this is what Drew Holiday does. And you know, Middleton does the same. When Giannis is out, they step up. And now Chris is out, Drew stepping up. And it's great to see. Also got to show some love for former Knick, Bobby Portis. He played absolutely incredible as well. I love Bobby just like shouting along, just getting hypes and all that. As far as the Celtics side of things, Tatum and Brown performance, I think they're anomalies. I don't think we should expect this level of performance from them throughout the series. I think the law of averages goes to show that this is not what Jason Tatum does. Even in his younger rookie years, he's always been somebody you can rely upon in the playoffs. He's not of that tier one yet, but this is an opportunity for Jason Tatum to take that step. Now, I mean, I definitely was a victim of recency bias after watching him against Kevin Durant and the Nets. And I put him on that pedestal of, is he top 5? Is he top 10? And I still think he's in that conversation, about top 10 conversation. But this is his chance to really solidify that if he can really make a mark going on.
Yeah, I mean, you said you think Jaylen Brown might sort of get back to his average. He got like 5 points in like the last couple of possessions last night. So before those, I think he was on like 7 or 8 points. So on like, I think it must have been like 2 of 11 shooting or something like that. He really stunk it up. I agree. Jason Tatum, I think, will be fine. But Jaylen Brown, I'm still not sure on him. I'll get into him later in the trade market, because he could be a name that's sort of pushed around a bit if Boston don't make it past Milwaukee. The main thing that you notice with Milwaukee is Brook Lopez can just sit in the paint. They will not let you get anything in the paint. This is why I thought Robert Williams would be really useful in this series. I'm worried now for them, because if he's in the game, Brook Lopez is just going to be able to sit in the paint, because if it's Al Horford playing at the 5 and then they've got Tatum Brown, I know Derek White and Marcus Smart, they could just space it out and Brook Lopez will be sort of rendered useless. But when Giannis and Lopez can just sit in the paint, it just clogs it all up, and Boston are having to resort to chucking threes. And they're not an incredible 3-point shooting side. They got guys who can hit threes, but they're just not like a Miami level or a Golden State level. So yeah, that's my takeaway. I'd be really worried if I was Boston in this case. And that's saying something, because I picked Boston to come out of this series. So yeah, Connor, how about you? How do you see this after the first game?
Obviously, before the series started, a lot of people looked at that Celtics first round series, and rightfully so. They thought that they could easily win that series, come out the East, but don't know, it's just something about, if you look at, like, let's say top 10 players in the series, you'd argue Boston have more players in the top 10, second and third certainly, but it's just how far clear Giannis is of everybody else. Because yesterday, obviously his stat line was amazing, but it's just like the little things on both ends of the floor that he can bring, it's just too good. He's simply too good for everybody. He's a class above every single person on the court. And that was without him even having one of his exceptional games last night. I don't know. I do worry for the Celtics, obviously. Whether you get Giannis out, as you said, Brook Lopez, great player, Drew Holiday, great player, and this was that without Middleton. I've got to go in 6 still, but I've got the Bucks doing this one in 6. I don't know. There's just something about how good that man is. I think he's so much better than everyone in the league right now. I'm not just saying that. I don't think he'll win MVP. I think Jokic will MVP because when it comes to most valuable player, obviously other things come into that award. But if you're just talking about pure best player in the league, there is nobody better than Giannis right now. He's just too good.
No, I would agree. I do think he's at the top, but I think that's a combination because of his offensive and defensive sort of how good he is on both ends of the floor. If you're talking just one end of the floor, I've still got a couple of guys who I'd take ahead of Giannis, but it's obviously the combination of the two. So we Connor said in 6 he's got Milwaukee. Do you have Milwaukee going ahead in this series?
I have Milwaukee in 7. I do think Milwaukee will still win, but I say 7, but I don't feel. You know how there's 7, like a game 7 is tightly contested. I don't think it's like in a tight 7-game win. I still think Milwaukee are going to edge it out, and I do think it's because of Giannis. I think Giannis has the opportunity here to start something really special if he can go forward and make it to the finals. And what I mean by that, he has this opportunity to take the reins or take the mantle what LeBron had over the East. Maybe he won't be as dominant about 10 years or however long it was a final appearance back to back. But if Giannis can do this without Chris Middleton, I don't know how long Chris Middleton's out, but if he can, even if Chris Middleton comes back in the later games, and if he can win them this series, this is Giannis' opportunity to really make it to that almost like LeBron level of dominance in a single postseason. I mean, we all remember the 2018 season of just LeBron willing a team which had no business being in the final to the finals. Now, this Milwaukee team is nothing like that Cleveland team, but this is Giannis' way of showing, look, I myself, I'm the best player in the world, and I can take it to the next level. But I just wanted to mention one quick thing about the Celtics, about an area which I was particularly concerned about. I completely forgot to mention is, so in the game, Al Horford, he didn't play badly at all, I wouldn't say. But if you're the Boston Celtics and Al Horford is hoisting up 10 threes, attempting 10 threes in a game, right? And they were genuinely relying upon Al hitting these threes. And yes, he hit 4 of them, and that was good. Maybe a bit of an anomaly, maybe not. But if you're in this situation where Milwaukee defense is forcing a guy like Al Horford to hoist up threes, Peyton Pritchard hoisting up threes, and you're relying on these guys, it is kind of scary if you're a Celtics fan, because it's like, look, my guys, my Jaylen Brown, Jason Tatum, who played excellently and on both ends of the floor in the net series, they really are being limited here. If I'm a Celtics fan, I'm going to be worried.
Yeah, as I said, the main reason for that is because Lopez is just sort of camping in the paint. Even Giannis, to an extent, is sort of letting Al Horford shoot that through. And what's he about, like 34%, 35% for the year? So he's an all right 3-point shooter, but he's not someone you want, as you said, taking 10 threes a game. But if they're open, I guess he's going to shoot it. So yeah, I am going to go Milwaukee as well. I know I had Boston before, but yeah, I think the way Giannis is playing right now, and as Connor said, that wasn't even his best game. He didn't really shoot that efficiently. Oh man, if he can get up to like 50% field goal percentage, and the way he was distributing as well, played defensively, there's not many people who can really stop him.
That is crazy, bro. Let's just think about that for a second. We're saying Giannis didn't play his best. He had a 30-point triple-double. I mean, that is crazy. Like
24, so wasn't it?
But it's just still crazy. The man is like just levels above everybody else, and I think that showed it. Like, he didn't have his shot going, so what did you do? You get 10 plus 10 dimes. Like, come on. This is what I'm saying. Giannis has got that LeBron-esque to him right now.
Well, I think I don't think he's the playmaker that LeBron is. I think he's sort of, Boston are sort of saying anyone but Giannis will beat us. So, Grayson Allen, Bobby Portis, Pat Connaughton are getting these open shots in the wings and the corners. So I think that's why he had so many assists. But of course, he's still got to make the pass. He's got to make the read. So you've got to be fair to him in that sense. But yeah, Milwaukee probably is 6 or 7. Boston having home court could play a factor, of course. But now that Milwaukee have stolen the game, it's hard to look past them. All right, so on to the second game of the night. We've got Memphis and Golden State. Of course, it ended in a Golden State victory on the sort of last possession. But the main thing I want to get into was the questionable calls, to say the least. I thought it was a poorly officiated game. We'll get into the Draymond flagrant 2. So I thought it was harsh. Connor, I'll let you start. Obviously, you're going to have a really unbiased opinion on this.
Draymond Green is a dirty player. He just is. We all know that Draymond Green has been a dirty player his whole career. And I know what you're saying. It was a big playoff game. Is it a harsh call? Blah, blah, blah. He shouldn't have done it. You run the risk when you do something like that to get yourself ejected from the game. He shouldn't have done it. Had it have happened on the other end, if Brandon Clark had pulled back Draymond Green like that and he got ejected to it, yes, I'd be annoyed. But either way, I'd admit Brandon Clark ran the risk. Draymond Green ran that risk. He paid the price. He got ejected from the game. If you don't want to do something like that, don't go out on the basketball court just to try and hurt everyone. He's got a history. You saw him do that Harden in the Rockets series a few years ago when Harden couldn't see anything. LeBron couldn't see anything, like I think last year's in the play-in. Is that Draymond Green's a dirty player. He's known for it. So you know what? Let him get ejected if he's going to keep doing that.
I thought it was harsh, mainly because of the scenario that it was, sort of a really important game, and for a flagrant 2, it's got to be something crazy, surely. Like a punch or like a deliberate elbow to the face, not even a Siakam with Embiid. We'll get into that later. But like, I thought he tried to hold him up as well with the jersey and everything. But in the end, I think it sort of helped Golden State. Don't you think? It sort of like made them work together even more. It sort of brought them together. How do you feel about the ejection?
I mean, first of all, with the ejection, right? So the lawyer in me, being a law student, let's look at the definition of a flagrant 2 foul in the NBA. Unnecessary and excessive contact committed by a player against an opponent. Is it unnecessary? Absolutely. Check it off the list, because there's no dispute. I don't think anybody would say that's not a flagrant. Obviously, a flagrant is a technical. I mean, it's unnecessary contact. Is it excessive? I'd say no, because yes, he pulled the jersey down, but he didn't. It wasn't like he threw him to the ground, because he's trying to hold it up. The whole time he's holding him up to stop his head from hitting the floor. So I wouldn't say it was necessarily excessive. And I think a call like that, given that an ejection, that's a bit much. It's a bit much. It's not like outside of like the realm of, like, it's not stupid, not a stupid call, but to call that, it's a bit much. I mean, yes, Draymond has a bit of a physical, I don't know, physical is one word for it, but he has his ways on the court. I mean, there's obviously the infamous kick to LeBron's cock in the Game 7 of the finals, getting him suspended. I mean, he has a long list of Steven Adams kicking him too. So, he has a history of it. I just remember the picture of just like Draymond's leg was kicking up Steven Adams. But I think you have to look at it from an objective point of view, because, that can't be the precedent you set like bats and ejection, because, it comes down to the whole thing of, this modern NBA soft. I don't think this modern NBA soft. It's just the refs are making it soft. That's a soft call. Because if it's the other way around, if you're a Grizzlies fan and Brandon Clark did that to Draymond, but you could visibly see he's holding him up, you'd be mad on that side. I mean, as far as like kind of like the rest of the game goes, but if whether or not that Draymond ejection helps Golden State, I don't know. Maybe it was a wake up call for them. I think that championship DNA was going to shine through no matter what. They've been there, they're tried and tested. When it gets when the going gets tough, that's what shines through, experience. But maybe it was a bit of a wake up call. They were a bit not lackadaisical, but the 100% energy maybe wasn't there. Maybe they were a bit too comfortable. It was a bit of a wake up call, but it's nothing more than that. Draymond is such a pivotal part of the offense and the defense. Being without him would cost them.
Yeah, they got a little punch in the face at the start. I think Ja hit a few threes They came out fast. But in the end, like their guys stepped up. Like Clay hit the big game winner. Jordan Poole had what 31, 8, and 9 or something. So that's probably one of the performances of the playoffs so far, realistically. So yeah, I mean their guys are like showing out. There's not one player. Maybe Andrew Wiggins is the guy who hasn't really sort of turned it on yet. But even he, I think that was a stat. He got like 5 offensive rebounds last night, or like loads of crucial rebounds. Considering they didn't have Draymond, Kevon Looney didn't get much of a run. So Wiggins was the main sort of big guy left to sort of clean up on the glass. Connor, how do you think it actually went, aside from the Draymond Green ejection last night?
The worrying thing for me is that is about as well as we play in a way, like especially against a team like the Warriors. Obviously, the Warriors are just a bit better than us. And I think that's just genuinely as well as we play, and they still beat us without Draymond for pretty much the whole game. I don't know, it is worrying. There's one thing I just want to say. Dillon Brooks needs to stop playing hero basketball. Every time that man gathers the ball, it's never gather then dish. It's just gather and chuck up whatever you can. And it really, obviously he's a great defender, but you're not MJ. You need to stop doing this hero basketball. It's not going to work for us. Against the Timberwolves, so many times it didn't work. And obviously he's got that really weird shooting form. And it's like, you're not money from 3 either. Yes, he can hit a few. But Dillon Brooks really needs to... Thing is, the weird thing about Dillon Brooks is he is a team player, and he is a very good team player, and he gets the boys riled up, and he's a great defender. But it's just as soon as he gathers that ball, the man just tries to play hero basketball, and it really annoys me. But another thing, a positive though, is what you saw yesterday, what Jaren Jackson Jr. can do when he's not got 4 fouls after 2 minutes. He can have a decent game. I think he dropped like 33 or something like that last night. He was our best player yesterday. And if he can carry on playing like that, Bane steps up a little bit. Jar can, I know Jar played well, but if Jar can find his feet a little bit more, maybe get those points in the paint that he's been trying to get, we can make it hard for them. That being said, I said before the playoffs started that when the Grizzlies and Warriors met, I was optimistic and I said Grizzlies in 7. I really can't see this one going past 5 games now in the Warriors' favor. They're just better than us. What can you do when you got the 2 best shooters in the world ever just on the perimeter all times? Draymond obviously didn't play yesterday. He's going to play his part in the series. Jordan Poole, they've added a 3rd one. There's not much we can do about this.
Yeah, I mean, just on Jaren Jackson, as you said, like once he gets a bit of a run, he can really, really perform. The thing that I was thinking with his defense, I think he just gets a bit too like block. He wants to block everything, and that's why he gets in foul trouble. And like sometimes you just think the guy's at the rim, he's not going to miss from there. And you're like sometimes you're giving Jordan Poole or Steph Curry 2 free throws. Like you might as well just let them have the layup. They've got more chance of missing the layup than missing their free throws at that stage. So yeah, I think sometimes it's a bit. He sort of needs to think whether like the risk reward for the scenario. Yeah, as you said, I've got Memphis losing this in 5. Golden State they do impress me. Although saying that John Morant layup literally could have just gone in.
Yeah, we could be having a whole different conversation.
Yeah. So I mean, it's neck and neck really, but I just think the Warriors have too much. You look like you want to, but
yeah, I mean, interestingly enough, I mean, I feel like 3 of us, I've been the hottest on the Warriors all the way through. I mean, they're my team at West. That's my favorite player, but I have them winning in 6, a little bit more than you guys. I have a little bit more confidence in the Grizzlies. I mean, this is the thing with the Grizzlies, and the Grizzlies, like Connor said, they're playing as good as I've seen them at least in the playoffs. I mean, yeah, they have big games against Minnesota, but in the Minnesota series, I would say I didn't think Grizzlies won, but it was more Minnesota lost that because they just did not know how to hold a lead for the life of them. Golden State won't make that mistake. But in this game, it literally did come down to a jar layup, but that's all it was. Clay missed 2 pivotal free throws down the stretch. Will that happen again? I will bet my life that will not happen again because that's Klay Thompson, and he didn't make a mistake twice. I mean, as a whole, the game, the way it went, it's interesting because you had a few standout performances from the Grizzlies. I mean, D'Anthony Melton deserves a bit of a shout out. So he played incredibly well in the time he was on, 14 points, I'm pretty sure. I mean, you had Jaren Jackson, who hit 6 threes. Do I think he's going to hit 6 threes every single game for the rest of the series? Probably not. But do I think Dillon Brooks is going to shoot better than 3 for 13 in the series? Yes. So it's like, I think that's a bit of an out. I mean, if he's going to shoot 20% for the series, Memphis needs to have a serious sit down.
Yeah, you wouldn't be surprised.
So, I mean, but it's like Steph didn't even play his best game. Wiggins didn't play his best game. I mean, it's going to be a really interesting series. I feel like this series is going to come down to whoever's hotter on the night. It's going to be a really, really fun series to watch. It's going to be very, very fast paced. But I don't think one team will simply just outclass another. It's going to be close, tightly congested games every time. Basketball is a game of runs. Memphis know how to go on runs, and so do Golden State. So I think it's going to be a hell of a series. But I do have Golden State still winning in 6.
Do you think if Memphis lose the next game, they could get swept?
Yes. Yeah. When it goes back to Golden State, yeah.
Yeah. So what? So you've got Memphis winning the next one, 2 to Golden State, Memphis winning back home.
Yeah.
So that makes you think. If you think they've got that home advantage, if they just won that first game, you maybe could have seen it going 7.
Going 7, and then it's anyone's game in a game 7. But yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that's all the difference one play could make. You think though, it was a well drawn up play. You got like Gary Payton almost like hit it off the backboard, and it would have been a goaltend, but he just like pulled his hand away. I mean, it was close.
It was a very, very clever play design by Coach Jenkins. I mean, he knows, and it was quite interesting because he knows Ja Morant. I'm pretty sure he is the fastest player in the league. Like if everyone's got an all out sprint, he's got to be up there. Him, De'Aaron Fox, a few guys, but he's got to be up there. So it literally came down to a sprint race. Like they give the ball to Ja and just pelt it to the backboard. I mean, that's a really tough finish. I mean, anybody plays basketball, you're sprinting as hard as you can. Offhand, that's a tough finish. So it could have gone either way, and that's why I'm still got a little bit of hope left in the Greece. But they got to take one at home. Come on, it's the grindhouse. We're gonna have to take one at home.
Yeah, and I think they will as well. But I do worry for them over the course of the series. On to the games tonight. We won't sort of preview the game like individually. We'll sort of look at the series as a whole. Let's start with the later game, Dallas versus Phoenix. Obviously, I've said about Dallas, they're my pick for the West. So how do you guys see the series going? Connor, if you maybe start.
I know you're very hot on Luka, and I think you said last time he's the best offensive player in basketball. You're probably right. But I just feel like he needs one other big piece next to him to get past the Suns. Not even like a big piece. Just he doesn't really have a second guy. Let's not lie. He just doesn't. They got a decent, well-rounded team, but I've got the Suns taking this series. I've got them taking it in 6, which is what I said before the playoffs even started. I just feel like player-wise in the series, they have got the best player in the series, but CP3 is just too intelligent. And obviously with Booker back now, Bridges has been dropping decent performances in the playoffs. I know it was only the Pelicans. And I know they didn't even look fantastic against the Pelicans, but no part of me, anyway, thought at any point that they weren't going to get past the Pelicans. Obviously, this is going to be a much tougher task than the Pelicans, but I don't know. I just feel like Luka needs maybe one more guy, or maybe this is the first time in his career that he's got past the first round. Tiny bit more playoff experience. If we're having this conversation in a year time, then maybe I'd favor the Dallas Mavericks a little bit more, but I think that Suns team is just better. They're just going to do it in 6. I think they're just a little bit better than the Mavs.
I'm not worried. You mentioned the playoff experience. I'm not worried with the playoff experience. Luka's probably at the moment might be the clutchest player, I think, because of so many different ways he can create. Like he can make so many different offensive plays. He can go to his left to that step back 3. He can drive. I mean, do you remember the shot last year against Memphis where he like caught the ball in bounds, kept his foot in, and like did a floater from 3 to win the game? I mean, like he can score any shot really, with the exception of a couple. And you mentioned like, do you not think Jalen Brunson's a second option?
he's a very decent player, and he's shown in this playoffs he's a decent player. But I just don't think Jalen Brunson as a second option wins you a ring. I don't think it gets you past a team like Phoenix. He's a great player, don't get me wrong, but he's not that guy. He's not. Obviously, Chris Paul has Devin Booker next to him. He's just not that on that level just yet. Like, I don't think he ever will be, to be honest. I think they need a better second guy.
I mean, of course, you're fair to say that. I do think that series against Utah was huge for Jalen Brunson, though, for his confidence, for his playoff experience. Like I as I said many times, I'm so high on the Dallas Mavericks. I'm also not fully convinced on the Suns either, mainly because their trip to the finals last year, I think, was slightly generous. A Kawhi-less Clippers. Who else did they play?
Lakers and
the Lakers, and with all their injuries and whatnot. And did they play Utah? No, the Clippers played Utah. I can't remember the other team they beat. But either way, they got a few breaks, to say the least, last year, and I'm still not 100% whether they'll be going all the way to the finals. Especially even if they do beat Dallas, do you really think they're better than the Warriors? I just don't. I think the Warriors have too many weapons. Booker's injury as well, there's a question mark with that. Man, I hate to be like almost a party pooper, but I'm just not sold on the Phoenix Suns. As I said, Luka's the best offensive player in basketball. I don't think it's particularly close. So I'm going to be a bit of a sort of ESPN analyst and just say I'm taking the best player in the series, and I'm taking Luka Doncic. Or I'm guessing you're going a different way to me.
Yeah, I mean, I'm still keeping with the Suns. I'm not going to change my prediction on that. I do have the Suns in 7 because that's how highly I think of Luka Doncic. And this is nothing against Jalen Brunson. Like a little fun fact about Jalen Brunson, where you spend a lot of my time in the holidays in America, New Jersey, New Brunswick. Jalen Brunson's from there, and he went to the same high school. My cousin actually went, and I remember watching the Villanova when he went to the Final Four in March Madness. I was like watching it in like the bars, like that uni bar there. It was such a crazy experience. I love Jalen Brunson. I love how he plays. But is Jalen Brunson going to be the second star in a championship team or a finals contending team? I just don't think so. I mean, it's nothing against him. He's an excellent player. But Dallas, because Luka is going to play, Luka's going to be Luka. And I think you're right. He is the best offensive player in the game. He has a complete offensive package. He's a playmaker. He can shoot at all 3 levels. He's capable around the rim. He's not not LeBron, but he's more than capable around the rim. He's a very, very complete player, and he's got such a knack for the game as well. Like we mentioned this in earlier podcasts, there is not many players in the entirety of the league who dictate the way an entire game is played, like Luka Doncic does. He controls the entire tempo of the game. If he wants the game to slow down to play to his level, he will do that, and that's amazing. But the thing with the Suns are they have too many. They just have too much. I mean, Luka's the best player in the series, yes. But then they have Chris Paul, D-Book, 2 and 3, and then the rest is kind of congested. But the way that Phoenix plays, having Mikal Bridges, having a Jay Crowder, having these guys who can switch on to Luka, I don't think Luka's going to be compromised by no means. Or maybe even Phoenix wants to let Luka get his. But these co-stars, Phoenix are too well coached. They play defense to a very, very high level. I don't think Phoenix are going to win the championship, so that's what I believe in the Warriors. I see this going to 7, and I see Phoenix just edging it out. But this also speaks to a Chris Paul kind of thing. If Chris Paul loses another one of these series where he's favored to win, it's so tough for Chris Paul. He's not won a championship, yes, and that's another kind of staying on his legacy because there's more opportunities. There are lots of opportunities to win championships, but if Chris Paul can't close out Luka and the Mavs right now, that says a lot about Chris Paul and his legacy.
Yeah, I mean, no, you're right. I think Chris Paul has had a lot of chances now. He's never really got over the hump. I'm going to say, I don't think this is a particularly bold take. I think by the end of the playoffs and when we go into the off season, Luka Doncic will be regarded as the best player in basketball. I think they're gonna win the championship. I think they'll get past Phoenix. They'll get past Phoenix in 6. They get past Warriors in 6. And I think they'll play Milwaukee or Miami in the finals. Probably Milwaukee. I don't see anyone in Milwaukee stopping them. I like Drew Holiday. I like Giannis. Giannis ain't taking him. He's not.
There's no way.
After he knocks Giannis out in the finals, Luka Doncic will get that finals MVP. One of the youngest in recent memory to do it. And I think he'll solidify himself as the best player in basketball. Because let's be honest, Luka isn't a bad defender anymore. I've said this a few times. He's like, I said him and Trey were the same, pretty similar offensively, but Luke is just not a defensive liability anymore. And I think he makes all the right reads. If he could just get that shooting percentage from outside up to like high 30s rather than mid 30s, oh man, he's going to be up at like 34, 35 points a game. You look at the best player in basketball. You look honestly. I know you'll say Giannis, but
it's the one thing I'll say on that take is if anybody is going to be the best player in basketball, like remaining in the playoffs, it will be Luka, because no one else has like a shot unless Steph drops like 40 for the rest of the series, and maybe Steph resurges back in that conversation. But I don't think there's a chance that Luka will overtake Giannis for the series. There's no way. Even if Luka beats Giannis in the finals, he still wouldn't be the best player in basketball, because Giannis is still going to get his. Like it's not like he's going to outclass him to such an extent where it's similar to like a LeBron Steph in the 2016 when the Warriors were 73-9. There was real discussion. Steph is better than LeBron. That he had the best season ever, unanimous MVP, all this stuff. But LeBron humbled him. Like that, Luka is not going to have that effect on Giannis. But they're not going to be that kind of jump. It just simply won't be. Giannis has two. Like you've seen how Giannis plays. Giannis was relatively, as Giannis can be, compromised offensively in this last game, and he still dropped a triple-double. But there is no stopping Giannis. He will figure out a way.
Yeah, I mean, I said it was a bold take, but it's just my opinion, and I'm just so high on Luka, and I think he's fairly obviously the future of the NBA. If you're counting Giannis, what has got 8-9 more years or so. And maybe 4 or 5 in his prime, you'd say. So, Connor, I don't know if you wanted to chime in.
Well, one thing I will say is this has been LeBron's league since 2003. Since he walked in, this has been LeBron's league. But he's not going to last forever. So the big prediction I have is when LeBron does hang up his boot, when he retires, we're looking at a very real possibility of one of the greatest rivalries in basketball. I think we're going to be seeing Giannis and Luka competing every single season to see who is the face of the league. Because as you said, Giannis isn't going anywhere for at least a good decade, yeah. And Luka's so young and Luka's so great. We could be looking genuinely at a Bucks Mavs, if the Mavs sort out a little bit, finals a lot consistently if they stay where they are. And Giannis versus Luka, they're going to be competing to see who the face of this league is once LeBron goes. And it'll be a huge debate. Trust me, it's going to happen in a few years. I'm gonna be saying I was right when they're saying, is this Giannis's league? Is this Luka's league? It's genuinely, these two players are going to be the best players in basketball. Right now, I have Giannis being the best player in basketball, and I probably rank Jokic slightly above Doncic. But you're very, very right when you're talking highly about Luka Doncic, because that man is different. He is different.
Yeah, I think Tyler Hill will have something to say about that best player in the league debate. But onto our final series that we're going to look at, Miami versus Philadelphia. I think this is the most obvious series, mainly because of the Embiid injury. I just wanted to say something about the Embiid injury. We've said like, oh, it's Simmons, oh, it's Brett Brown, oh, it's whatnot, whatever. When is it going to start being Embiid's fault that Philly aren't doing like what they're supposed to be doing? When are we going to start having that discussion?
When he stops dropping these unbelievable numbers.
Yeah, but it's not all about numbers. You know that. You say KD drops these numbers. If you don't win basketball games, it doesn't matter.
But Embiid's a bit of a bitch as well, isn't he?
The attitude is a big part of basketball. Absolutely. I mean, look at James Harden in Houston. So what he averaged 36 didn't mean anything, did it? So no, you make a good point, and I would say what that point would be is end of this playoffs, because at this point it's like he's had good teams. I mean, he had Jimmy Butler, JJ Redick, Benson, that team, Tobias Harris. He had those teams. He's had Harden now, kind of in some capacity. It's a tough one. I mean, the thing what's going to hurt Embiid, if anything will hurt him, the only thing what can stop Embiid is Embiid, because there is nobody in the game who can actually really contain him. So anything what stops him is only going to be him, and health, injuries, etc., etc. But if I'm Philly, and the very, very likely outcome, but we'll get into this a little bit more. Actually, let's just get into it now on the prediction for me in this Philly series. I think Heat win in 5, but there is a route for the Sixers to win. And let me hear you. I don't think it's likely, but I think it's worth being mentioned. And it speaks to more James Harden. This is James Harden's chance to kind of shut everybody up and show he's still about it. If James Harden can steal a game on the road, and then hopefully Embiid comes back in game 4 and they can win that game and it's tied up at 2-2 going back to Miami, who knows? But there's a route in which the Sixers can win, and if they win it, that's crazy. I mean, that would be a crazy upset if they win it.
One thing I just want to say about something you just said. James Harden is not that guy anymore. The Heat are going to have this man in jail. He is going to be locked. There's no escaping jail for James Harden in this series against the Heat. He's not that guy anymore. In Houston, they gave him the ball and said, here you go, score 35 points a game. He didn't win anything. And then you saw him at Brooklyn. He got a little bit exposed when he had good teammates around him, OKC back in the day. And now he's at the Sixers. He's just not that guy anymore. The Heat are going to have this man in jail. I've got Heat in 5.
I think. Sorry, I'm gonna butt in. I think James Harden would have had a much better series if Embiid was there, because Miami would have just doubled Embiid. I'm not gonna lie. They would have made sure that he's not gonna beat them, and James Harden could have played like as the primary ball handler, basically as a 4-on-3. So now that it's like 1-on-1, so he's gonna have like PJ Tucker, Jimmy Butler, or Bam Adebayo guarding him. And like all 3 of them are gonna switch like right on the front, and he's just not gonna get any room. The one guy who is there's 2 guys who are the X factors, but I think it's one guy. Philly has no chance unless Tyrese Maxey plays better than Tyler Hero. They just don't have any. I think they'll get swept, but I don't think they get a game if Tyrese Maxey doesn't play better than Tyler Hero, because you just look at the talent on both sides now that Embiid's gone. It's just so outmatched. I know you wanted to butt in on, so I'll let you go now.
Yeah, no, you're right. They are outmatched, and that's kind of the point, that they are very, very, very much outmatched. This way, again, I mean, James Harden will have an absolute nightmare, but this is a legacy game. This is a legacy series for James Harden. There is such a narrative right now about him just being a bit of I don't know how to put it, not a pussy or a flake, but just
a choker.
He's not a choker. Yeah, I mean, he's a serial choker, on one of the all-time great chokers, because if he, forget having a ring, but if he had another finals preference to his name, beating the Warriors and going to Cleveland, and even if he lost LeBron, that's a respectable loss to lose LeBron James. But he doesn't have that, and this is a guy who has an MVP, scoring titles, and all the accolades you could have possibly won. This is probably similar to how this is Chris Paul's last chance to save his legacy. This is James Harden's last chance to save his legacy. And the only way you can do that is to win. You can't, we took the Heat to set. No, who cares? You have to win. And that's a tall thing to order. But if James Harden, and I don't think he will, but if James Harden can overcome Jimmy Butler, PJ Tucker, Bam Adebayo, then we have to completely change the narrative about James Harden. He's going to be one of those guys.
Yeah, well, as we said, we don't think it'll happen. Connor, how about you? Do you see Philly getting anything in this series?
I think they'll take a game, even if it's Embiid comes back, even if Embiid doesn't come back. The Heat do this like weird thing sometimes where it's like they almost play down.
Yeah,
to what
you're right.
Sometimes, just for that reason, I think the Sixers will take 1. But just quickly on Embiid, I genuinely think Embiid's an idiot. Like, for years, I've thought Embiid's an idiot. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying he's not a great player, because he is. But he's an idiot. In that game 6 against the Raptors, he they're up by loads. I don't even know why he's still in the game. He dunks it and he starts doing the Vince Carter. I'm all for trash talking, but like he does that, and then literally Siakam comes down, gives him one in the face. Embiid's out for the series. Just don't do stuff like that. You're asking to get one in the face by any Raptors players when you do something like that. You make yourself a target. Did he not learn a few years ago when he did the exact same celebration against the Raptors, and then the picture of him crying in Game 7? Like, I've always thought Embiid's a bit of an idiot. Like, you get like footballers who dive and play act and stuff like that. Leave that in football. That doesn't happen in basketball. And B's trying to introduce that to basketball. And he's such a great player. He doesn't need to do stuff like that. So no, I think Embiid's a bit of an idiot. And he was asking for a whack in the face from Siakam, and he got one. And now look at him.
Yeah, I mean, no, you're right. He's a bit of a guy who plays to the crowd almost. Even when the crowd's the Toronto crowd, he's still finding a way to rile them up. There was talk of him sort of coming. So I'm pretty sure that he's going to miss these first 2 games. Then Game 3, they're going to see how he is. But I said this on our chat earlier. He's going to have like what's it? The face mask on.
Face mask, yeah.
He's going to have like a broken orbital bone or fractured or whatever it is. If he catches like one thing, like one elbow, and you know what Miami are like, they're not going to sort of take it. They're not a like nice team to play against. You're going to catch an elbow from PJ Tucker, from Dwayne Dedmon, like or Jimmy or something. When they go up for a layup, you're going to catch something. If he gets hit and like gets seriously hurt, then like he's in like real trouble with his eye there, and obviously. You don't want anything bad to happen, but I think his health does come first. I'm saying that sort of tongue-in-cheek, hoping that he doesn't come back as well. But the one other injury in the series is Kyle Lowry is out, and I don't think he's going to play the first 2 games either. Miami are being really cautious with him, hoping that they'll have enough to get through these first couple of games. But as you saw, you can't sort of mess around with when you think you've got teams in the bag. You know, like that's how Embiid's got this injury. If they just finish that series in 4 or 5, they'd be healthy, loads of rest, they'd be ready to take on Miami. But now they've got Embiid out, and you know probably their whole season's down the drain. So you can't really play with your food. You just got to finish this series, take no chances, and just be ruthless, or else, like as Philly have learned, you're going to pay the consequences. So I've got it a sweep. Connor, do you have it in 5 as well?
5 for Heat.
Yeah, so both of you guys have it in 5.
Yeah.
Okay, so on to some players who might be moving on in the off season. Mainly the bigger names, a couple of free agents, a couple of guys that have been rumored to be traded quite a bit. But the marquee free agent for this year, assuming a few bigger guys accept their player options, Zach Levine, unrestricted free agent. There's probably going to be a lot of interest for a wing scorer, looking at 25 points a game, can create off the dribble, 3-level scorer. Like offensively, there aren't many things he can't do. His downfall comes defensively, you'd say. Orm, what do you predict for Zach Levine come the summer?
What I predict, using my brain, would be that Chicago would give him any money he wants. What my heart says is he's going to come to the Big Apple. Levine is coming to New York City, because you got to think about it this way. Zach Levine is the perfect player to be like famous. I mean, he's decent looking. I mean, he's not an ugly looking chap. He can jump. He can shoot. As a player, he has everything you want. He's so marketable. Come to New York. The money he's gonna make would just be obscene. I mean, I'm gonna say that about a lot of these people here, but the money you make in New York is different. Jeremy Lin was getting compared to Kobe because he had 2 good weeks of playing. What do you think they're gonna do if they have Zach Levine in here? Look how we talk about Julius Randle like a few months ago. He's a bomb now. This is the New York effect. You get in the New York hype cycle. There's nothing like it. And Levine knows this. He's gonna entertain this offer. I know he will. Because why wouldn't you? Like, forget everything else. The culture is there. The environment is there. It's the Big Apple. There's nothing like it. Chicago's nice, whatever, yeah. But it's nothing like New York City. Nothing is like New York.
You've got no, not 2. You've got 3 downfalls. The team sucks.
Don't even worry about that.
The owner is not going to pay like anywhere near the luxury tax to go and get him.
Don't worry.
And thirdly, your management sucks. You've got 3 glaring issues on 3 levels with the team. And even 4, like the coach is going to run him into the ground. He's going to play 40 minutes a night. He's not going to get numbers. Great. If Zach Levine only wants to be known as a sort of a brand player, that's what he can go and do. If he wants to win titles and compete, he'll go to the other 2 teams that are on my list. Well, one of them being Chicago, which is probably the obvious one.
Most likely.
Then the other one would make for an interesting backcourt. Not great defensively, but quite dynamic offensively in Atlanta. I think they're looking for a shooting guard or a second shot maker. But I just don't like that team defensively. Then that they're already dreadful defensively, and their offense is like they're second in offensive efficiency over the year. And but I mean, should he want to go play with Trae Young? I'm sure the offer will be out there. So Connor, what do you think? Who did you have Zach Levine for?
If he doesn't sign back with the Bulls, which obviously he may well do, I'm thinking. If Zach Levine is used to playing in small markets, obviously he was in Minnesota for a long time. I'm not saying he loved it, but he didn't seem like he hated it. He enjoyed his basketball. Is it possible if the Utah Jazz get rid of Mitchell, they break the bank to try and get Levine in as almost just as a replacement? Because they'll get a lot of good pieces if they get rid of Mitchell, and then maybe they can use that as bargaining power for Zach Levine. Here, let's offer you what you want. Come to the Jazz for a few seasons. Maybe the Jazz won't be so ass in the playoffs if they get rid of Mitchell for the right guy and even get rid of Gobert for some good pieces. And that's how they pitch it to Zach Levine. I don't know, Utah Jazz, he's used to playing in small markets. It'll be a very exciting team to watch the Utah Jazz if they obviously had Levine, because Levine is television everywhere he goes. I don't know.
I know you mentioned he likes playing in small markets, but who voluntarily chooses? What superstar voluntarily chooses, say, I'm going to go play in Utah. That's where I want to play. I can't see it. I really can't see it.
Jimmy Butler did it, but I know it was Minnesota, but he decided.
He got traded, didn't he?
Yeah,
well,
but players like that always have a say.
Yeah, I guess. But what I think wasn't that because Tibbs was Tibbs weren't.
Yeah.
Was he at Mini?
Yeah, he was. Yeah.
So that was probably the reason.
I don't even know one wakes up and decides I'm going to go to Utah today, but I don't know.
Yeah, there isn't too much going on in Utah. We're going to come back to Utah in a minute, but probably one of the most hotly debated players of the season. I think we've had enough talking about him. A guy who's I think has sort of got to humble himself a little bit. I know he's been great, but he does not play winning basketball. I'm going to talk through some trades that have been rumored before you guys give your opinions. One that I just can't get my head around, and I don't know how this has been offered. Charlotte reportedly have offered Gordon Hayward and Terry Rozier straight up for Russell Westbrook, and the Lakers have said they're not interested. I just don't get it. I just don't. Why wouldn't you want Terry Rozier, who's on, I think he's on 20 mil a year. Okay, Gordon Hayward's on 30 mil, and he's had injury worries. But anything to still be able to compete and get off that Russell Westbrook contract. You don't even have to give up any picks. You don't have to give up THT. I don't get it, but you
if
guys.
That's the case. LaMelo needs to get the fuck out of Charlotte, man.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
Yeah, I mean, I don't. Yeah, why would Charlotte offer that? But there's certainly been interest from Charlotte. The other one was Indiana, which was a bit more of a realistic trade. I think it was Brogdon, Hield, and then Westbrook, THT, and 2 picks, which is a bit fairer. That obviously the Lakers looked at Hield last year, and I think that one makes a bit more sense. But then again, are the Lakers going to give away 2 picks when LeBron and probably Anthony Davis aren't going to be there anymore? Doesn't really make sense. So that's why I think he'll be staying in LA. Or I know you've been
No, I hide it now. I'm not hiding now.
I think, is there a chance that Russell Westbrook might go to the Knicks? How do you feel about that?
How do I feel as a Knicks fan? No, but at the same time, like it makes sense. I don't know what we would give up. I mean, the only contracts we kind of match up is like a Julius Randle. But what's Julius Randle going to do on the Lakers, right? But maybe it'd be a free team trade in that situation. But do I want Russ on the Knicks? The issue with Russ on the Knicks is one is the size of his contract, and I think he will stunt the development of an RJ Barrett, Cam Reddish. Our draft pick we're going to get now, and I mean, I just don't think it'd be good for him. He's not like, I'm trying to think of a kind of, he's not Kevin Garnett going back to Minnesota. Yeah. He's not one of those guys where he's doing like a homecoming thing or anything like that. He's an old player. He's way past his prime. Yes, but we don't need a player like that. Like, it was good for Minnesota because Kevin Garnett will put his nickname to big ticket. He will sell seats. New York has got no problem with selling tickets. I remember going to the Knicks game when we had I can't remember the year. It was like 2018 when they went to the finals. And I watched the last game of the season. It was Knicks versus Cleveland, right? That was sold out. I mean, yeah, LeBron was playing, but Knicks games are always sold out.
Yeah.
And we had nobody. Porzingis was injured. Enes Kanter was our best player that year at that point of the season. That was a dark time to be a Knicks fan. But we don't need Russ. I mean, if it happens, I think most Knicks fans will be pretty disappointed.
Yeah, especially with what you're going to have to give up, your flexibility. The main thing will be the flexibility in the trade market and the free agent market. Connor, who did you have Russell Westbrook going to?
I like Russell Westbrook. I don't think he's a good player anymore, but I just like him. I used to like him in his prime. So please, Westbrook, please just go to a small market team. Get yourself a TV. You've admitted that it bothers you, the whole Westbrook. You don't like all that. If you're in a small market, if you're tucked away in Sacramento somewhere, even New Orleans to an extent, I know they're trying to build a playoff team, but just go to a small market. Get yourself away from the TV screens. Get away from everything where you can just focus on playing some basketball to end your career. Please just do that. Is the best thing you can do right now. I'm sure Sacramento will give something up to get Russell Westbrook in. It won't be much, but they'll find a way to do it. Just please, Russell Westbrook, go to Sacramento, live your life. Take your kids. Don't get called Westbrook anymore. No one will be able to call you Westbrook because Sacramento games aren't on TV. Just please, just do the right thing, Russell Westbrook, and leave.
The thing with Westbrook, you look at since he left OKC, and I think he was there, they kept him almost out of loyalty for a little bit. Since he's left, OKC, this isn't very common for a star where a team wants to trade him. Usually you get teams ringing up about him. Now he's teams are trying to get rid of him rather than teams calling up about him. So I think he's such a negative asset now. You want Russell Westbrook nowhere near your team. I've seen some absolutely horrid trades, like Kyle Lowry and Duncan Robinson and a pick for Russell Westbrook. What the hell do you think you're doing? It's crazy. Some of these Laker fans, they're delusional, man. I mentioned Utah earlier. Now, whether they trade Gobert, whether they trade Mitchell, whether they trade both, blow it all up. Let's start with Gobert. I've got a few teams listed. I'll let you guys go first so I don't steal any of your thunder. Connor, if you maybe want to go first.
I've got one team, and I think the Mavs need to do everything they do to get Gobert, and I'm not going to lie. I think that if he can go to the Mavs, he can prove a lot of people wrong. Rudy Gobert is such a weird player. He's got 3 Defensive Player of the Years, and you don't get that by being a shit player, yet so many people think he's shit. And in the playoffs, he's proven to be pretty shit in some playoff games. If you go to the Mavs and you pair it with Luka, there's no debate over who the guy is in Dallas then, because Luka is going to be the player in Dallas. Whereas in Utah, people are like, is it Mitchell? Is it Gobert? Who's the best player? No, you can play your role. You can do your defensive duties at Dallas. And you're not asked to do so much on the offensive end because you've got the best defensive player in the league on your team. I think if Rudy Gobert goes to the Mavs, he will prove everyone wrong.
I mean, there's a chat. It's probably his best fit, to be honest. And there's contracts that Dallas can put in now. I'm thinking Tim Hardaway. I don't think that they'll have to give up too much, picks wise. So yeah, it's a clear option. I had Dallas written down as well. Who do you have for Gobert?
I mean, Dallas was one of my ones, but you guys have both mentioned it. A few of the other teams to think about, maybe Charlotte. Obviously, the Knicks are going to be in discussion in everything. Would I mind a Rudy Gobert? No, he's a 3-time defensive player. Yeah, I think he's an excellent player. That's a lie. Let me take that back. I don't believe that. But
He's not a Knicks player though, is he?
He's not. He's not. But what my thing with Rudy Gobert is, he is what Mitchell Robinson could be. In a ceiling kind of sense. I think Mitchell Robinson could be even better. I mean, if you look at his defensive rating, the way he plays the game is very, very similar. They even have the same liabilities. But I personally wouldn't want him on the Knicks. I don't know how this trade would work, but maybe Golden State, if they're able to move an Andrew Wiggins or someone of the sort over to Utah. Still All-Star for All-Star. Andrew Wiggins still adds value to Utah if they just to trade him. And then what really provides is some solid rim protection. Draymond is an excellent defender. To have a defensive front court of Draymond Green and Rudy Gobert, 4 defensive player of the years between them. God knows how many all defensive selections and all those accolades. That would make Golden State a very, very scary team. And in a lineup of Steph, Clay, Jordan Poole, Draymond, Rudy Gobert, oh my God, that's just crazy. But yeah, that's another possible one.
Well, the one that I had written down that I think is probably the most obvious would be, so Vucevic was like, before he moved to Chicago, he was an all-star a fringe all-star, getting in, getting out. Like, he was just about there. Since he's gone to Chicago, he's dropped off because I'm guessing his usage has dropped down. He's not getting as many shots. He's not defensively good enough for Chicago to be where they want to be. And I don't think they particularly need a shot create, a guy who really needs to spread the floor, because they've got shooters in Chicago. They've got Lonzo shooting well from 3. DeRozan, okay, his 3 isn't great, but he can stretch pretty much as far out, like in the mid-range that you want. Zach Levine, great. Kobe White, there's so many names there who can shoot. So spacing wouldn't be an issue. And I think if they put Vucevic, a young guy, and a pick, I think that's pretty much a perfect deal for both sides. Like, obviously, if they trade Gobert, Utah, they're looking at rebuilding probably. So I think the picks and the young players, that'd be perfect for them. But for the other guy in Utah, Donovan Mitchell, I wouldn't hate to see him go, because the first team on my list is a certain Miami Heat. Just saying the D-Wade connection, maybe he's get a word in. Donovan, if you're gonna leave, go to the Miami Heat. You know what I mean? And like, they've got the perfect package for him. Send all the white guys over to Utah. It'd be perfect. said Tyler Hero, Duncan Robinson. You can't have Max Strus though. He's got hood tendencies. You know what I mean? I think if they put those 2 guys, Duncan and Tyler, and attached a pick, I think that could probably get it done, because Tyler Hero's had sort of a breakout year now. He's getting that extension. Well, he'll probably get an extension at the end of the year, so the contracts are going to match up. Miami needs to get rid of Duncan Robinson. I hate to say it because I love him, but he's just not worth his contract anymore. And I think in a place like there, like, maybe Tyler Hero won't thrive because he seems like a guy who likes the big lights. But yeah, I would love to see him go to Miami. What about you guys? Where have you got Donovan Mitchell landing?
For me, no questions, gotta be the Knicks. And I think this is a not. I don't know how good it would be for the Jazz, but this is a great opportunity for Mitchell. This is going to be a team where he's undisputed the number 1 option. There's no debate about that. I'm pretty sure he's from New York, so he's coming back home. Do we have the assets to give it up? We're going to have probably from a 9th to 12th pick kind of range this year. We have contracts like Evan Fournier, Julius Randle, we're able to move. There is a deal to be done if the time was to come. And I think it's a if the possibility for Donovan Mitchell to come to New York, that would be if they blow the whole thing up. Because the only way that happens is we also move Julius Randle. And then if we're going to bring Julius Randle to Utah, a Randle Gobert team, I don't know how I feel about that one. That's just very, very no spacing whatsoever. So, I mean, at that point, they'd be blowing the whole thing up. And if they blow the whole thing up, the NBA landscape could really, really change. But I would love to see him on the Knicks. I would love to see a lot of these guys on the Knicks. I'm going to keep saying it, but Donovan Mitchell on the Knicks is that's something we'd love to see.
Yeah, Colin, if you've got your team where you think Mitchell will go.
I don't want to talk about Mitchell right now. I've got a message to every New York fan.
No.
New York fans, man, just stop. You just please stop. For years, all I've heard is we're going to get him. The Knicks fans realize how shit the New York Knicks are. What have the New York Knicks done in the last 20 years? What have you done? Your best player in the last 5 years has been Julius Randle. You got the 4th or 5th seed last year, and they celebrated on the streets like they won the whole thing. New York Knicks are going to be the most embarrassing fan base in this whole league, man. All I ever see is when they're meant to have KD, Kyrie, and Zion all on one team. All I see is these Photoshop New York Knicks jerseys. Nah, New York Knicks fans need to be taken down a peg, man. If I just imagine like a small market team. Like if I support the Grizzlies, imagine the Grizzlies were saying he's gonna come here. No one's coming to Memphis. No one's coming to New York. You're always gonna be shit. You're not gonna win anything for years. You're not gonna get Mitchell. You're not gonna get anyone. Just stop. Your best player is gonna be quickly for the next 10 years. Just stop, please, New York fan. Just stop.
Yeah, quickly will be in Utah next year, won't you? In that trade.
Sorry.
So, the other team I had for Donovan Mitchell, and I think it's pretty perfect fit actually, was Boston. So we mentioned earlier that we think that Boston might lose to Milwaukee after seeing that first game. If Boston did bounce out, it'd probably be Jaylen Brown who's on the trading block, because there aren't many guys that you'd want for Jason Tate. Like there aren't many guys like you'd think Giannis, Luka, KD, like only a few guys.
Incredible.
So Jaylen Brown's the one on the trading block, plus a couple of picks and maybe a Peyton Pritchard or whatever. I think that gets it done. And then you've got a second shot creator, like a real shot. Jaylen Brown's good. He's not offensively as good as Donovan Mitchell. If Donovan Mitchell was on that team, because they're good enough defensively, they're well coached, and you imagine Donovan Mitchell was instead of Jaylen Brown in this series, I don't think it'd be a debate who would be going through in this series between Boston and Milwaukee. I think it's the perfect fit. And I'm going to jump onto the next guy as well, because I've got Boston for him as well. It's Bradley Beal. I know we had Lillard next in the league, next in the list, but Bradley Beal, and I've got Lillard for Boston as well. I think there's so many moves that Boston can do for these guys that just work out perfectly. They need a second offensive guy who could create his own shot, like score at 3 different levels, and like maybe a point guard, shooting guard. That's why I'm thinking Mitchell, Beal, or Lillard, because like Marcus Smart at the point, it's a bit. He is a 2 guard, really, a bit of a combo guard. So I don't know. Maybe if we move on to Lillard, how would you guys feel with Lillard to Boston or wherever you guys think he'll go?
I mean, with Lillard, as long as he gets out of Philly, as long as he gets out of Portland, I'm happy. He deserves so much better. I know he's too loyal for his own good to stay to that city. He's only hurting himself at this point. Lillard on Boston, I like that. I mean, I think that'll be interesting. I think it's exactly what Boston needs right now, and I don't even mean it from like what he brings from a literal basket, on the court perspective. I mean from an off the court perspective too. Talking about a guy who's still in his prime, nearing tail end of his prime. He can still put up numbers, still obviously spaces the floor. I don't think there'd be any debate on their side of who the guy is. Jason Tatum is still the guy, and there'll be no questions about that.
With Dame,
Dame is. If Dame coming to Boston, it would still be Tatum's team.
Offensively, who's the Damian
who's
Lillard?
Taking the last shot?
Damian Lillard pretty much on any team would be the number 1 option. That's not a question. I think
it's still Tatum's team.
Yeah, but it doesn't really matter whose team it is. Like the Warriors are Draymond Green's team. It's like he's not like the guy though, is he? Like Damian Lillard in Boston would be the guy. It's not Jason Tatum.
Do you think he? I don't think he'd be the number one scoring option. I think
he would. Come on.
I don't think he would be.
He's probably he might be the most dynamic offensive player in the league. Not at the moment because he's been injured, whatnot. But like you think, I don't know what his shooting percentage was from three, probably at 38, 39%. But he can make plays. He can get to the rim. He could obviously shoot from deep with the best of them. So I don't see how you take Jason Tatum over him.
When you're going to stunt Tatum's growth for Lillard though.
No, it won't be. Nah, that's not a discussion anymore though, because Tatum's like almost getting into his prime now. You want to put the best pieces around him. If you can go and get Lillard and put him next to Tatum, they will do it, and Lillard will be taking the last shot for that team. I have no doubts about that. No doubts.
You know what? Well, it's Dame Lillard. When it comes to the end of the game, it's Dame time. So like, exactly. I get that from that, but I think that Dame Lillard, Tatum, Boston be an amazing thing to see, because even when Dame eventually inevitably falls off slightly due to Father Time, Tatum is still in his prime at that point, and it's going to be kind of masked. Damian's slight decline. Just another kind of name that seems to throw out there. I don't know how it would work, but obviously there's talks of the Sixers if they can do a Harden Dame trade. I don't know how that works though, because it was a mid-season trade. But that's another.
It would be possible, but Harden's up for an extension at the end of the year, so Philly are going to have to pay him, and then Portland are going to have to be willing to take on Harden. Which why would you trade Damian Lillard for Harden? Like, if you're going to trade Damian Lillard, you get like as many young pieces as you can back.
But what happens if they include a Tyrese Maxey or a Matisse Thybulle with that?
I think Philly are trading their depth again. It can't happen. They can't do it again. They can't trade more young guys to get another superstar who, I love Dame, but he's getting on. He's 31 now. He's just had like this surgery in the mid-season, barely played this year. And he wasn't playing particularly well at the start of the year either. So yeah, I don't see it. I don't see him go to Philly. It just wouldn't make sense. It's going to be another excuse for Embiid, isn't it?
I don't think Lillard leaves. I think he's just too loyal to that organization, and it's different because you see, like, okay, take football for example. Francesco Totti stayed at Roma for 26 years, but basketball's not like football. Basketball, you can get traded like that. You can get back just like that. Everything can change in basketball. It's not the same as football. Damian Lillard, he can't. I don't think it's the kind of league where you stay loyal to your team for the whole time, especially if you're not winning anything. Dirk stayed loyal to Dallas, but he won a ring. Kobe stayed loyal to the Lakers. He won 5. It's not the kind of place where you stay loyal to a team when you're not winning anything. And Dame staying loyal to Portland is not feasible, because I feel like, I know like people might disagree with this, but Portland could trade him just like that. They really could if they really wanted to. So
he's probably got a no trade, so he'll be able to choose where he goes. Like, if he doesn't want to get traded, he won't be getting traded. He's got a no trade clause, I'm sure. Like, every big player has a no trade clause.
I'm lining up in a Portland jersey next year.
Who'd you say?
Dame.
Dame. Yeah, I mean, I just don't think they're in the right state. Like, who do they really have? They got. I don't think Nurkic is good enough. Simons is like, he's getting better, but like, you can't have Simons as a number 2 option on a championship level team. They've got to fight like some of the trades that they did at the end of last year as well.
That's what I'm saying. Giving up CJ, like once you give up CJ, isn't that it? Like, you're done. Because what are you doing to Damian Lillard at that point? Because, like you're saying, you give up CJ, you give up his running mate. There's nothing left for him. Dame can't will a team to a championship. That's just not how it works in the NBA.
The thing with CJ that I thought was, they don't think that Dame and CJ can work as a backcourt, because they're 2 ball dominant guards. They both don't play really much defense, and they don't have like the defensive players around them, like a Rudy at center, or a Draymond at forward, to sort of cover the gaps in the defense. So I think that was a more strategic move. But as you said, what did they get for it? Did they get Josh Hart, a couple of picks? Like, I mean, it's a debatable decision, to say the least. For after Lillard, let's talk about probably our last. Let's talk about the last two. We might as well. We got Bradley Beal. What, a guy that's been in trade talks that seems like forever. Like, he's always in trade talks. I'll go with you, Orm. I'm guessing you're going to hold up this. Say,
I mean, everybody's going to come. Everybody in this list is going to come to the Knicks. But do I think he's actually going to come to the Knicks? I would love Bradley Beal to come to. He's one of my favorite players to watch, and he's one of those players where I just really, really feel for him in his career, because a lot has gone wrong, which has not been his fault. But John Wall injuries, you can't blame him. Yeah, he had rust for a bit, and he did as good as he could to get to the Wizards to where they are. I really feel for Bradley Beal, because it's like he's in one of those situations where he's kind of stuck in the middle of nowhere. He needs to get out. I mean, I'm not going to mention the Knicks because I can say the Knicks about everybody. But the team I am going to mention then possibly is the Denver Nuggets. Now, this would be, I don't know how Wizards would go for this, but a trade around a Michael Porter essentially as the main piece for Bradley Beal. And what I think it's a win-win for both teams. You know, Jamal Murray's going to come back; he's healthy. Jokic, yes, he scores the ball. He gets buckets. You know, he's a 28, 8, and 8 guy, 28, 10, and 8 guy even. He's an excellent player, but then you're going to have two bona fide scorers in Jamal Murray and Bradley Beal, who can create on their own, you know, but who can still play off the catch and shoot. Who can still, you know, deter, as Bradley Beal has done in his past to John Wall, and Jamal Murray, you know, continues to do. I mean, I think that would be an amazing match, amazing kind of match there.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of guys on this list that you could argue Denver with it for a trade around Michael Porter Jr. Like, they could be like, if they got any of these guys, Mitchell, Beal, Lillard, Levine, like at that 2 guard, they would probably be like the best offensive team in the West. I don't think that would be a question. Like, they could be really strong. The only problem, there's been talk about Michael Porter Jr., that his contract is not so good as it first looked. He got a max extension, and obviously he's been out the whole season. So now, like, a team's really going to look at him and say, "Oh, that's a main trade piece for a Lillard or a Beal." I'm not so sure. Connor, for Beal, quickly, who did you have for Bradley Beal?
I don't know how it would work. That's the thing. It's quite ill-advised, but I do feel like the GM's going to try. He's got to try something new. Like, obviously, Bradley Beal's not washed, whereas Russell Westbrook was washed. So I think he will try, and it just seems like such a Lakers kind of choice to try and get a player like Bradley Beal in. I don't know how it will happen. I do think the Lakers need to get rid of Anthony Davis because his body's made of glass. I don't think Anthony Davis or Beal is a trade, obviously. But I think if they get rid of Davis for something, and then they use that some of those somethings to get Beal, that was my thinking was. Because I do feel like that Bradley Beal is a kind of Lakers player. But having said that, that Denver Nuggets one does sound really good, because the Nuggets would be I think they'd be a real contender if they could be able to do that.
And then finally, we've only got a few minutes left. Jeremy Grant, I had 3 teams. I see you holding up the Grizzlies shirt. I did have the Grizzlies. I think he'd be a great fit on the Grizzlies, a defensive wing who can still like create for himself as well when Jar's off the floor, can hit open shots. The other team was the team that Memphis just knocked out in Minnesota. They need some like sort of not experience, but you see there's a gap for Memphis at the 4 spot. Like, they have McDaniels who hit a few shots, Vanderbilt who's a good rebounder, good defender. But if they had another guy there who was like really sorting it out for them, I think they could turn into one of the better teams in the West. And then finally, I had to just chuck in Miami because I think they've been linked with him for a while. Although I don't think Miami particularly need him as much as the other 2 teams. I don't know if you guys wanted to add on Jeremy Grant.
Yeah, I mean, the only team another team, other than the ones you mentioned, where I can see him going is the Lakers. I think is absolutely stupid match. I can see a Westbrook and maybe a THT for Jeremy Grant type thing.
The salaries wouldn't match.
But the Lakers are going to go crazy over, look how many big names have we got Jeremy Grant. But you know what? It still wouldn't work. It just wouldn't work. Yeah. But that's going to be low GM trying to be low GM. So I mean, the Lakers are going to be in there. That's about it.
Just before we end, I just want to ask how, if we were to land Jeremy Grant, what do you think we'd have to give up
for Jeremy Grant? A pick. Who's your wing? You give up Kyle Anderson, a pick, and maybe this year's pick as well. I don't see you giving up Bane. Maybe Brooks might go.
I was thinking Brooks.
Yeah, I was thinking Brooks. Yeah,
but Anderson's like a 10 mil contract, so it'd probably be Brooks, Anderson, and a pick. Yeah. So something like that. So I mean, not a lot in context really, because then you can pick up a guy on the free agent market to fill Dylan Brooks' gap that's been left. So I think that'll be everything for today's episode. We're sort of running out of time. So I think we covered quite a lot there. Covered the playoff matchups, and that'd be all. Thanks for tuning in.